Just oh, 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 yeah. Goes like this. We've had aches and pains. We've been through struggles, the stress and strain. Still not give up. We are stand up and fight till Yeshua comes. For all the fallen soldiers, rest in peace on the other side. Cause one day in the other life, we will meet again. Them kill you off and believe them win, but them don't know the fight just begin. Cause I see all of your suffering, and that's why he caused me to sing. He said, oh, hold on, Hebrew soldiers, yeah. Me know the battle kinda tough, but you bound to win. So never give up, no, cause you fighting victory. Though them are off and puff, them don't lose already. So hold on, yeah, Hebrew soldiers. Hold on. Yeshua said, no darker road van that which he trod. He will never leave you lonely, son, no need to be sad. Though them persecute your falsely, rejoice and be glad. Cause great is your reward in heaven. So, no matter worry about the laugh and the giggling. Press the one to mark because the price is everlasting. You might be wondering now when the struggles are going to end. The tunnel might have dark, but there's a light at the end. Press. Hold on, Hebrew soldiers. Oh yeah, me know the battle kinda tough, but you're bound to win. So never give up, cause you're fighting victory. Oh yeah, I mean say hold on, oh Hebrew soldier, oh yeah, persecution a go come, but Israel we have to stay strong and let us preach righteousness in Babylon kingdom. For too long, our people have been spellbound by doctrines of devils and pagan religions. Wake up, ye sons of Jacob. I gave us laws, now it's time to keep them. It's time to turn away from the ways of the heathen. Isaiah chapter 1 verse 10. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living God. So hold on, you've got to hold on, Hebrew soldiers. Me know the battle kinda tough, but you're bound to win. So never give up, cause you're fighting victory. Do them off and puff, them don't lose already. So hold on, Hebrew soldiers. Hold on.
Turn that off. All right. Shabbat Shalom. Wherever you at around the world. Shabbat Shalom. This is on Jerusalem Ministry. I'm Brother Palau. And coming with part 2 of dealing with the Ebionites and the Nazarenes. Okay. Last week we touched on the Ebionites and Nazarenes and showing you how as early as the early first century, you know, around the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, you know, even the 70s, you know, even in the 80s, you know, we were showing that how that essentially is the same name. This is the same group, just using different names. All right. So we show you how in the Dead Sea Scrolls, how that community, they looking, their leader is the branch. Okay. He's the leader, he's the branch, and he's the prince of the whole congregation. And they mentioned, you know, about the branch, you know, and these are how they are followers of the branch, okay, because they're waiting for the branch to return, you know. And the word branch is just a Hebrew word of naster, which was coming from, you know, what that word had been played on with like Nazarite or Nazarene, Nestor, and it's really coming from a branch from Jesse. All right, so these people was calling themselves Nazarenes or Jessenes, you know, or Ebionites, which just mean poor ones. All right, so but the Dead Sea Scrolls community showing you that community call themselves the poor ones. They call themselves the branch, the branches. They call it, which is the Nazarenes. They call themselves like the congregation of the poor, sons of light. The followers of the way, the new covenanters. These they call themselves righteousness, the sons of righteousness. That's what they call themselves. The sons of Sadak, what they call themselves in the scrolls. So because the word Sadak just means righteousness. So you see that, in the scrolls, in the Hebrew. So now, but the Ebionites and Nazarene is essentially the same group as early as the early first century. They are essentially the same group. It's the same group. You got some people that was from Galilee. You got some people that was from other areas around Israel. And these people from Galilee, from Judea, from different areas, they all came together, and the headquarters was at the Qumran Cave. The Qumran Caves was the headquarters. All right. So you got, different names, that's identifying the same group of people. Okay. And that's what you see when it comes to the Ebionites and the Nazarenes. All right. So now we're going to talk about like how, eventually where did the split happen? Okay. When did it actually become a split within the Jewish Christians, what scholars call the Jewish Christians? Where did it become a split at? All right. So this is what we're going to be going into today. So now I want to start with Higaphesis. He's called the chronological, the chronicler. He's putting these things in chronological order, right? He has a church history, all right? And we only have fragments that have been preserved through later church fathers like Eusebius and like Alexandria, like Clement of Alexandria, So, but with this information right here, we're gonna Higaphesis, he's early. He's born around 110 AD. They say he died around 180 AD. So his writings is at least dating, around the 50s, 60s, AD, even the 70s. So 150, 160, 170 AD. This is his writings dating to. All right. And he wrote information about in his travels. He traveled around to different churches and he witnessed certain things with these different churches. He witnessed how these churches were still under, pretty much following the same type of, structure that was coming from Jerusalem. All right. And something happened though. During his time, it was a split with Jewish Christians though. During his time, and we're going to talk about that. But he records information to let you know when this split actually happened. All right, so we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to go into Justin Martyr. Justin Martyr is actually having conversations with a Jew. I want to call him a Jewish Christian named Trypho. He's talking to Trypho, and he's talking to Trypho, which is a Jew, and he's explaining to Trypho that these two sects of Jewish Christians, one sect believe this and one sect believe that. And that's as early as the 150s, 160s AD. All right. So in the mid second century, we can see that it was a split, okay, within the Jewish Christian sect. Okay. So now we're going to talk about it. So Higaphesis. Now we're going to go to his writings. All right. Now, this is Higaphesis' fragments of his writings right here. And I'm going to go down to, this is concerning the martyrdom. This is concerning the martyrdom of Simon, the son of Clophas, the bishop of Jerusalem. And we know Simon, this is Yeshua or Yeshua brother. Just like James or Jacob or Jacob is Jesus' brother also. The bishops of the church, it was a Davidic bishopric that went within the church. All right. So after Jesus, left the scene, before he left the scene, he passed it down to James. All right. All right. Then after James, it was passed down to Simon, another brother of Jesus. Then it was passed down to another brother. It stayed in like a family Davidic lineage to keep that divinic throne, there within the church. All right. And like I said, we talked about the Jesus dynasty, and I do need to finish up the part 2 about that. But we talked about the Jesus dynasty and how it is a bishopric, and how we went into how James became the bishop, and who in these lists of bishops that went that was ruling the Jerusalem church all the way up till 135 AD. All right. So now, but with this, so we see concerning the martyrdom of Simon, the son of Cloas, bishop of Jerusalem. So I'm gonna read this. So some of these heretics forsooth laid a information against Simon, the son of Cloas, as being of the family of David and a Christian. In these charges, he suffered martyrdom when he was 120 years old in the reign of Trajan Caesar, and when Atticus was counselor legate in Syria. And it so happened, says the same writer, that while inquiry was then being made for those belonging to the royal tribe of the Jews, the accusers themselves were convicted of belonging to it. With show of reason could it be said that Simon was one of those who actually saw and heard the Lord on the ground of his his great age. And also because the scripture of the Gospels makes mention of Mary, the daughter of Clopas, who, as our narrative has shown already, was his father. So they're trying to say that Clopas, I mean, it's actually the same person, Joseph, okay? Because when you read the information, matter of fact, let me go to Mark real quick. I'm go to the book of Mark, and I'm gonna just show you that how this is Jesus' brother Simon right here. But in the meanwhile, I'm gonna keep going now. It's going to go into some historical information to give us some key markers, give us some dates. All right. Now, before I do that, let me go to Mark real quick. Let me check out Mark. Well, this is Mark. I'm gonna go to Mark chapter 6, verse 3. And let me make it bigger. And it reads, is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James and Joseph, and of Judah and of Simon? And are not his sisters here with us? And they were offended at him. So Simon, what we see is the same. It's the same Simon as Simon of Clopas, what we see within the Greco-Roman Gospels. All right, it's Simon of Clopas. But this is Jesus' brother. All right, this is Jesus' brother, and he's part of the 12 disciples. Also, he's part of the 12 disciples. Let me see if I can find where is that when you talk about the 12 disciples. But so now, okay, here we go right here. So this is Mark chapter 3, and I'm gonna name it going to the 12 disciples. And I'm gonna just want to read about Simeon. But hold on. So where is it? Right. All right, here we go. This is Mark chapter 3, verse 18. And he naming his disciples. Matter of fact, I'm gonna just start at verse, I'm gonna just read verse 18 and get straight to it. And Andrew and Philip and Bartholomew and Matthew and Thomas and James, the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus and Simon the Canaanite. All right, Simon the Canaanite, Simon the Zealot. So now Simon the Zealot, that's who's ruling the church right here. That's what we see. All right, now after he was ruling the church, he died a martyr. Okay, now this is what they say. The same historian mentions also others also of the family of one of reputed brothers of the Savior named Judas, having survived until the same reign after the testimony they bore for the faith of Christ in the time of Domitian, as already recorded. So the family is still, so the church is still being ruled by this Davidic family, even in the time of Domitian. And this is, Domitian right now. This is he ruled. Okay, he's an emperor, and he ruled during 81 to 96. All right, 81 through 96. So that even up to 81 to 96, you still have the this Davidic family, this bishopric Davidic family still governing the church. All right, along with the apostles and stuff too, those that are still survived by that time. All right, so now I'm gonna keep going. Now he writes as follows: they came then and took the presidency of every church as witness for Christ, as being a kindred of the Lord. And after profound peace has been established in every church, they remain down to reign of Trojan Caesar. So the church was peace was established in every church, and this is, like I said, this is during the early 80s all the way to the mid 90s. All right, this is during the Emperor Domitian time. All right, so. And it say it remained that way all the way until it remained that way going down all the way to the reign of Trojan, right? So Trojan, he reigned from 98 to 117 AD, all right? So late first century all the way to the early second century, he reigned, all right? So the church was still pretty much at peace all the way until about once, all the way through the reign of Trojan is saying. So all the way from 117 AD, the church is still okay. We don't have no split yet. We don't have no split yet, and it is still being ruled by the family of Yeshua. Okay. So then I'm gonna keep going. So now, and it say that is until the time when he was sprung from an uncle of the Lord, as aforetime mentioned, Simon, son of Cloas, was informed against by various heresies. People they came against him and they led him to being martyred. All right, and subject to an accusation like the rest, and for the same cause before the legate Atticus. And while suffering outrage during many days, he bore a testimony for the Hamashiach, so that all, including the legate himself, were astonished above measure that a man 120 years old should have been able to endure such torments. And he finally condemned to be crucified. All right. So and then so all the way up to, so he died probably around like 117 AD. Okay, this they kind of said, I think Simon died around 110, 117 AD. All right, he died during Trojan during Emperor Trojan reign. So then I'm gonna keep going, but it says up to that period, the church had remained like a virgin, pure and uncorrupted. So all the way, like we just read, all the way even during Trojan time, okay, even during Trojan, which is all the way from 98 AD all the way to 117 AD, the church was still a virgin. She wasn't corrupted. All right, and it say, for if there were any person who were disposed to tamper with the wholesome rule of the preaching of salvation, they still lurked in some dark place of a concealment or other. So around this time, it wasn't no no crazy doctrines popping up, and if they did have it, they kept it in a dark place. But then it say, but when the secret band of apostles had in various ways closed their lives. So when the apostles and started to die off, and and then a lot of the Davidic rulership started to people dying off of old age, or some people getting martyred, while that was going on, they say, and that generation of men whom it had been vouchsafed to listen to the godlike wisdom with their own ears had passed away, then the confederacy of godless error take its rise through the treachery of false teachers. So after Simon, after pretty much a lot of the leadership that was there during the Messiah time passed away and went away, next thing you know, this is when false teachers started to arise. And this is, like you said, this we're going to find out this is happening after the Emperor Trajan reign. All right, so this is going into Hadrian. This is going into Hadrian reign. All right, so during Hadrian time, so from 117 AD to about 138 AD, you had these false doctrines start to creep up, or heresies, creep up within the church, because the apostles not around, Christ's family, the Messiah family is dying off, the apostles is dying off that was originally there. So then you got people trying to, usurp authority over the Jewish Christians. All right. You got people trying to usurp authority. We're gonna talk about it right here. So now it reads, who seeing that none of the apostles any longer survived, at length attempted with bare and uplifted head to oppose the preaching of the truth by preaching knowledge falsely so-called. So this is when you get Gnosticism start to come in, all right, around this time period. So around Emperor Hadrian time period, around 117 AD to about 138 AD, you got the Gnostics start to be birthed, okay? And different other, people, having issues or whatever like that. So I'm gonna keep going. Now this is what Higaphesis say. He say, I'm gonna start right here. He say, on my arrival at Rome, talking about on his arrival at Rome, I drew up a list of the successions of bishops down to Anacetus, whose deacon was Eleutherus. To Anacetus succeeded Soter, and after him came Eleutherus. But in the case of every succession and in every city, the state of affairs is in ordinance with the teachings of the law and of the prophets and of the Lord. So during Higaphesis' time, even though it may have been some schisms going on, but and this is around at least 150, 160, maybe around between 150 to 180 AD, Higaphesis, been doing his traveling, whatever. And he's saying that, around that time, even though it may have still been, people may have to have a little schism, a little sex, but people still, the churches that was established by the apostles and all of that, the doctrine still was pretty much teaching of the law and of the prophets and of the Messiah. All right. But like I said, something happened. Something happened. Let's find out what happened. I'm gonna jump down. I'm gonna read right here. Therefore was the church called a virgin. So the church, it's going back to it being a virgin underneath Jane, underneath Simon, underneath, this leadership all the way until 117 AD, until Emperor Hadrian time. That's when you start to have these different schisms. So it say, therefore was the church called a virgin, for she was not yet corrupted by worthless teachings. But you got somebody named Thebulus, it was, who displeased because he was not made bishop. So somebody, we wasn't made bishop, and this person he was connected to one of the 7 sects of Judaism, that was following the Messiah. All right, that was a part of the church. So I guess he got mad. He couldn't become bishop. They was mad because the bishopric kept going to people that was a part of Jesus' family. All right, Yeshua family. So he was feeling, somebody felt some type of way, like, hey man, why we can't be bishop? So then you got that going on, and because he was not made bishop first, became to corrupt her by stealth. So he was mad, and this probably happened around 1/7 after Simon. They probably elected another which they did, because I know the list of the Jerusalem church bishops all the way up until 135 AD. So what happened was, after Simon, they elected another, relative of the Lord to be actually, bishop over the community. And people didn't like that. All right. And then by this time, I think most of the apostles was gone. So people didn't like that. They like, nah, we need to change the leadership, whatever. That's how they need to change it. They felt like they needed to change the leadership. So he said he was connected with the 7 sects, talking about the 7 sects at that time that made up Judaism, which existed among the people. like Simon, from whom come the Simonian, whatever. And then you got Cleopas, from whom come the Cleobani. Then you got Dorothius, from whom come the Dorothiani. And you got Gortharus, from whom come the Gorthiani. And you got Masabothius, from whom come the Masbothiani. From these men also come the Menarathenists and the Marcionites. All right. Now the Nazarenes, those are the Mandeans. Those are the people come from the Mandeans. So people come from a prophet. So they want to come a prophet named Manny that started his own religion. All right, now, so but you got these, and you got the let's say in the Carpocratians and the Valentinians and the Basilianians and the Saturnalians. Each of these had leaders and had their own private, teachings. Had their own private and distinct capacity, brought in his own private opinion. So each different schism, I'll call them, had their own private interpretation also, right? So now this is what you get. So because people was, having issues with the leadership, eventually you even had, Jews and Gentile followers of the way start to break off and do their own thing and not adhere to the church protocols, and people start doing their own thing really, and coming up with their own private interpretations outside of the doctrine that was established already. So, and then say from these have come false Christs, false prophets, false apostles, men who have split up the one church into parts through their corrupting doctrine uttered in this disbargement of God and of his Messiah. All right, so now, and I'm going to read this last part. Now, this is about going into about the Jewish Christians. So above it was mentioned, it started mentioning to some of these, like the Valentinians, they consider Jewish a fraction of Jewish Christians, but a lot of these, some of these are actually Gentile Christians too, like Marcionites. Some of the, some of this stuff. So these are like some of them are groups that actually broke off from Jewish Christians and started doing their own thing. Some of them became, Gnosticism in it. Some of them became, real, just different, even different than the Greco-Roman Christians, So we had a break off, but then he's gonna talk about the Jews. He's gonna say there were moreover various opinions in the matter of circumcision among the children of Israel. So now the children of Israel, that's a part of the church, that's not what you're maybe on. That's not Greek speaking Jews or nothing like that. They're not just Gentiles. These are actually Jews who, are part of the community. And what it is, they have a conversation now about circumcision. So now they having an issue about circumcision. Oh, and the issue is more than likely it's about, do we need to get, these Gentiles circumcised still now? Like, okay, do these Gentiles need to be basically becoming Judaized while also receiving the gospel of the Messiah? And it was a schism happened with that, but this happened after James, after Simon. This happening after 171. After 117 AD. This is happening during Emperor Hadrian time. All right. So this is like not making the Gentiles want to become like not allowing the Gentiles to be Judaized. That's not the original doctrine of the church. The original doctrine of the church was to actually allow Gentiles have to become Judaized along with receiving the gospel of the Messiah. All right. So they having issues about that. And then another issue that they're having is held by those who were opposed to the tribe of Judah and to Christ. So some of what was there, like that person Thubius, they was opposed to the to the Messiah family, still running the church. All right, they was opposed to that. And then you got in names such as the Essenes, the Galileans, the Herobaptists, the Masobathian, the Samaritans, the Sadducees, and the Pharisees. Because you had people from these different groups a part of the Messianic community also. So that's what the issue is. That's what the issue is. So now we see from during Emperor Hadrian time, this is when we start to have schisms within the church during Emperor Hadrian time. So during 117 through 138, this is when the church is starting to get broken up. All right. And then you got the Jewish Christians. One side of the Jewish Christians like, hey, we should stick with Judaizing the Gentiles, and the other side like, hey, no, we should not stick with Judaizing the Gentiles. All right. And then, people had issues, Jewish Christians had issues with the rulership. Okay, why does Christ's family have to keep ruling? That came later on. They had issues with that. Like I said, all that stuff, all this happened after 117 to about 138 AD during Emperor Hadrian time. All right. So now, going to Justin Martyr. Now, Justin Martyr, his writings, he's born around, they say 100 AD. He died around 165 AD. His writings date to about 140 to 150. All right. These are just as early, if not maybe earlier than Hegephaestus. All right. So now we're going to go into Justin Martyr, and he's an apologist. All right. And he's actually having a conversation. We're going to go to this is chapter 47 in his conversation with Trypho. Trypho is a Jew, right? He having a conversation with Trypho about these Jewish Christians. All right. And we're going to get some understanding. He doesn't name them. All right. He doesn't. And Hegephaestus, when we just read Hegephaestus, he don't mention nothing about no Ebionites, nothing about no Nazarenes. Why? Because that name wasn't a heretical name. Neither one of those names, Nazarenes or Ebionites, during Hegephaestus' time. All right. He didn't, even though it may have been one group may lean more with not Judaizing the Gentiles, and the other group probably lean more with Judaizing the Gentiles, but they still at that time they wasn't considered heretical. All right. Hegephaestus, he writing against the Gnostics group and like the Marcionites and things. He writing against these, these other groups. He's not writing against the Ebionites and the Nazarenes. He's called Hegephaestus the Nazarene. All right. So now back to Justin Martyr. Now, Justin Martyr, he actually gives a little more information about these two main Judean Christian groups. All right. So we're going to read this short, it's a long conversation of Trypho, but we're just going to read chapter 47. All right. Now I'm going to read this. I'm going to start with it. And this is Trypho. But if someone knowing that is so, after he recognized that this man is the Messiah and has believed and obeys him, wishes, however, to observe these laws, he's talking about these institutions, will he be saved? So Trypho asking Justin, if a Jew, or anybody wanna believe that, that Yeshua is the Messiah, and they choose to follow God's laws, will they be saved? Now let's see what Justin Martyr say. In my opinion, Trypho, such and one will be saved. So even during Trypho time, these Jewish Christians wasn't considered heretical yet. The Ebionites and the Nazarenes wasn't considered heretical yet. All right. So in my opinion, Trypho, such and one will be saved. He said will be saved if he does not strive in every way to persuade other men. So he said, yeah, if they're not trying to make other men, I mean those Gentiles who've been circumcised from error by Christ. So he's saying, yeah, they'll be saved if they're not trying to persuade other men to keep these ordinances. To observe the same thing as himself, telling them that they would not be saved unless they do. So he's saying, so Trypho's saying that no, they won't be saved if they persuading other men to do so and telling them that they're not going to be saved unless they do so. So now you start to say like they haven't, see, they not considered, these Jewish Christians at this time, they still not considered heretics yet, but some people have like a lot of these Greco-Roman Christians at this time having an issue with these Jewish Christians telling Gentiles, y'all need to follow kosher. Y'all need to keep these holy days. Y'all need to get circumcised. You know, they having issues with that. All right. It wasn't issues like that before, not until during Emperor Hadrian time. All right. So now, and it say, this you did yourself at the commencement of this discourse, when you declared that I would not be saved unless I observe these institutions. Then Trypho replied, why then have you said, in my opinion, such and one will be saved, unless there are some who affirm that such will not be saved? And Justin replied, there are such people, Trypho, and these do not venture to have any intercourse with or to extend hospitality to such person, but I do not agree with them. So he's saying, Trypho's saying, yeah, okay, I do believe that they can be saved, but I don't really want to, I don't want to have no, no discourse with them. I don't even want to, extend hospitality with them. So now this is why you get one sect of the Jewish Christians start to, be more accepted by the Greco-Roman Christians, because that group, which later on, got deemed the name Nazarenes, that group wasn't trying to get the Gentiles to be, Judaized. So Gentile Christians were more nice to them. But they still eventually still considered them heretics because they kept the Jewish law. Okay. But at this time, they can get along with a Nazarene more so than an Ebionite. But the Ebionite is the original way, the original doctrine of the church. All right, so now let's keep going. But I do not agree with them. But if some, through weakness-mindedness, wish to observe such institutions as written given by Moses, from which they expect some virtue, but which we believe we're appointed by reason of the hardness of the people's heart, along with their hope in this Christ, and wish to perform the eternal and natural acts of righteousness and piety, yet choose to live with the Christians and the faithful, as I said before, not inducing them either to be circumcised like themselves, or to keep the Sabbath, or to observe any other such ceremonies, then I hold that we are to join ourselves to such. So he's saying, if they're not doing all, if they're not trying to induce us to keep circumcision, to keep the Sabbath, and because by this time, Gentile Christians, they already put in the first day of the week, which they consider, which is the Lord's Day, they're putting that over the Sabbath. By this time, they start to do that as early second century, doing forgot the person. Doing Ignatius time. Okay, Ignatius, this is like early second century, like 110 AD. So already by that time, and then this fast forward to Justin Martyr time, which is 150 AD. By this time, the Gentile, the Greco-Roman Christians, they already put the Sunday, Lord's Day, the day of resurrection, they put that day over the Sabbath day. The Jewish Christians wasn't doing that. And the Jewish Christians, they observed the Lord's Day. Not the same way as the Greco-Roman Christians did, but they did observe the Lord's Day. All right. But they did not cease from holy work on that on the Lord. That day was still, it just was commemorating of what of the Messiah rising on that day. But they didn't treat that day like a Shabbat. They treat the Shabbat still like the Shabbat. All right. So he says, so if they're not trying to make us observe such ceremonies, then I hold that we are to join ourselves to such. and associate with them in all things as kinsmen and brethren. So they more cool with the Nazarenes. They more cool with them. You know, because those who became to be associated with the name Nazarenes was those who wasn't trying to push the Gentiles to be Judaized. Okay. Now I say, but if Trifo, some of your race, he said, but if Trifo, some of your race who say they believe in Christ, talking about the Ebionites, compel Gentiles who believe in this Christ to live in all respects according to the law given by Moses, or choose not to associate so intimately with them. So they saying they choose not to associate intimately with them for those ones who believe in Christ, but compel these Gentiles, you know, to follow the laws of Moses. They said we can't really rock with them. In like manner, do not approve of them. They don't even approve of them. But at this time, he doesn't say they are heretical yet. They're not heretical yet. They're not deemed as heresies yet. But I believe that even those who have been persuaded by them to observe the legal dispensation along with their confession of God in Christ shall probably be saved. So he said, even with them, they probably be saved. So at this time, the Ebionites, the Jewish Christians, the Nazarenes and the Ebionites, Justin Martyr he doesn't mention their name. All right. I just know that, you know, based on the information that, you know, this is how it went down. You know, eventually those ones who the Greco-Roman Christians were more cool with, which was the Jewish Christians who wasn't pushing on them to be Judaized. Those Greco-Roman Christians eventually named them Nazarenes, and I'm gonna show that, you know, later on next week. But right here, so it's saying that they can probably be saved. He says he's basically saying, yeah, the Ebionites can probably be saved. They're not heretics yet. And I hold further that such as have confessed and known this man to be Christ, yet who have gone back from some cause to legal dispensation and have denied that this man is Christ and have repented not before death, shall by no means be saved. So he's saying, yeah, okay, they probably be saved. But then you got some who believe in the law and they did believe in Christ, but they went back and stopped believing in the Messiah. He said they're not going to be saved. Okay, and further, I hold that those of the seed of Abraham who live according to the law and do not believe in this Christ before death shall likewise not be saved. And especially those who have anathematized and do anthematize this very Christ in the synagogues, and everything by which they might obtain salvation and escape the furious of fire. So he says, so those that's in the synagogue that actually, you know, want to follow the Messiah, they will escape the vengeance of fire. All right. So now I'm gonna stop right there. So even as early as the 150, 160 AD, the Jewish Christians were not deemed as heretics. So when did this happen? When did they be? We're going to go into it in the late 2nd century. You have a so-called church father named Irenaeus. He deems them heretics. All right. He deems them heretics. Now, this is Irenaeus. This is book 3. No. This is book. Yeah. This is book 3. And this is chapter 15. And he said the refutation of the Ebionites. So now Irenaeus, he's writing in the late, like 180, 170, 180, 185 AD. This is late. So by the late 2nd century, this is when the Jewish Christians became deemed as heretical. All right. And Irenaeus, he don't even mention 2 groups. You know, he see them all as still one, because as of right now, it's really no difference between these 2 different Jewish Christian groups. The only difference is that one is not pushing Judaizing on the Gentile Christians. But the other one is, that's the only difference right now. No difference in virgin birth. No different. And Irenaeus mentioned about how the Ebionites don't believe in the virgin birth. So I'm gonna just go down a couple of things that Irenaeus mentioned about the Ebionites. So he mentioned that they don't deal with Paul writings or Luke writings. All right. And they say the refutation of the Ebionites who disparage the authority of St. Paul from the writings of St. Luke. They don't deal with St. Paul and St. Luke like writings. I don't even call them saints. But all right, so and then I'm gonna read it. Chapter 1. But again, we allege the same against those who do not recognize Paul as an apostle. We're talking about the Ebionites. All right. They should either reject the words of the gospel, which have come through to know through Luke alone, and not make use of. So they don't make use of Luke writings. They're like, no, we don't. They don't do this. They don't. No. And because now around this time, the proto-orthodox, they're trying to create the orthodox group and create orthodox scriptures, and you know what scriptures is going to be orthodox and what scriptures is not. All right. So so around the late 2nd century, this is when they really started formatting what you would call the Orthodox. Now, by the 4th century, it was solidified. The Orthodox group was solidified by the 4th century. But this is now they're trying to create this. All right. And if you don't deal with the books that they want you to deal with, then they're going to write against you. All right. So this is as early as the 2nd century. All right. Now, I mean, this is early as this is late 2nd century. Late 2nd century, okay, when the Ebionites was first deemed heretical. All right. Now, let's see. Let me go to just 2 more. Let me stay right here in book 3. So this book 3, this still book 3, this is chapter 11. And this paragraph 7, it say, such then are first principles of Christ. There is one God and the maker of the universe. He who was also announced by the prophets and who by Moses set forth the dispensation of the law, which proclaimed the Father of the Lord Jesus Christ and ignored any other God or Father except him. So firm is the ground upon which these gospels rest. So Irenaeus, he the first one that has to start mentioning like names of like Luke, Gospel, Book of Acts, and different other things. He the ones that name, what you would call like these 4 synoptic gospels, whatever they, the Gentile Christians put those together. But he about to mention something about the Ebionites and their records, and that they very, he said, so if you don't rest in these synoptic gospels that he's proclaiming, then you are a heretic. Themselves bear witness to them, and starting from these documents, each one of them endeavors to establish its own particular doctrine. So they're saying the Ebionites had their own doctrine. For the Ebionites who use Matthew gospel only are confuted out of this very same, making false assumptions with regard to the Lord. All right. So now he's saying, so you see the Ebionite, they only use the gospel of Matthew. So now he letting you, so he deemed them as heretics. All right. He deemed them as heretics. So he's saying they only use the gospel of Matthew, which we know is it's in Hebrew. They using that. And then he's saying they don't deal with Paul. They don't, and he's calling them heretics because they're not agreeing with what the Orthodox doctrine is trying to establish. So any group that's not agreeing with what they're trying to establish, you are deemed a heretic. And this started happening around the late 2nd century. All right. So now let's see. You know what? I will come back. I would, because but Irenaeus, he mentioned that they don't believe in the virgin birth either. All right. And that's something to keep a key doctrinal thing within the Orthodox. All right. So all this information right there, I'm gonna just stop right here. And I will pick back up next week. We're gonna be going into the 3rd century and how in the 3rd century, you do have two. The so-called church fathers, they start mentioning 2 sects of Ebionites. All right, but before that, they don't mention 2 sects of Ebionites. I mean, before that, they don't mention that these 2 sects of Ebionites have totally different doctrine or nothing like that. They just mention, as early as Justin Martyr, they just mention that one believe that they're gonna get Judaize the Gentiles, and one believe they're not gonna do that. So that's the only difference, as of right now, even going into the late 2nd century, that's the only difference. But when we go into the 3rd century, something starts to happen. The Orthodox is gaining more power. So the sect that was deemed the Nazarenes, they eventually start trying to see things the Orthodox way a little bit. But then they eventually got deemed as heretical. So we're gonna go into that information. All right, so maybe be one more class, or maybe just either 1 or 2 more classes. I don't want to make these so long because I want y'all to get the information. All right, and I want y'all to do your own research with it. So now that's pretty much it. I hope this was a blessing to bring forth this heresy, so people can be able to examine this information themselves. So, and we'll see y'all next Sabbath. Shabbat shalom.